Hey, we're the Vinyl Verdict, and today we have some exciting news that Iveys Anthologies 1, 2, and 3 are now on streaming. So we wanted to go back and revisit these and talk about the origins of Badfinger and the Iveys and talk about our impressions of these original releases. Recently, Iveys Anthology 4 came out, How Much Is the Sky? And so we thought we'd go back again we'll look at Iveys Anthology 1 and 2, which are live concerts, and Anthology 3, which was a collection of demos from 66 to 69. Without further ado, we're going to go podcast style and play some songs and give you our impressions. We're going to start with Iveys Anthology 1, which is just a concert, really. I mean, just a concert. It's the first recorded concert of Pete Ham, Ron Griffiths, and Mike Gibbons ever, along with Di Jenkins. And it was recorded on June 7th, 1966. This CD was released in 2017. And it, again, kicked off this series. It was recorded in Wales, and it's actually two different sets, but they're combined together. So you get a nice collection of 20 songs or so from this era, recorded by Bill Collins, their recent manager. He had only found them, I believe, in March of 66, earlier, like 3 months before that, when his son was playing in a band at one of the shows, and he obviously liked him. So we have over an hour of recordings. I'm going to give you a little bit of the timeline, which is hard because we don't know too much about what the Iveys were doing at this period of time, but I can tell you what some other bands were doing. So, again, June 7th, 1966, what are the Beatles doing? They're in the middle of recording Revolver. It's not even out yet. So you can tell this is very, a lot of the songs they're covering are early 60s songs. They're going to play the Budokan later that month. So, this is really like this period of time where the Beatles are about to go through this huge transformation. Hasn't happened yet. In terms of the Iveys, again, they're playing a lot of shows, a lot of them in Wales. In August of this year, they're going to go play the Cavern Club for the first time. They're getting bigger, they're growing a little bit and playing more and more shows. So let's talk about the songs. Something I'd say about, in general, I'm not as familiar with a lot of these cover songs. Obviously, they didn't cover them as Badfinger, and because they're early 60s songs, I don't think they've transcended maybe as much into my era as some of the later 60s and early 70s covers that were done later. Are you familiar with a lot of them?
With some of them, but your point is well taken. They do translate a little more to me, but many of them didn't translate to my generation. Not just yours.
But when I look them up, they're all number one in the UK in 1963.
Yeah, I think they had more success there. Then there's a song like Love Hurts, which, interestingly enough, to me was always a slower type Roy Orbison melody, and the Iveys are kicking it on this, and long way from their eventual pop kind of emphasis. And this is some rhythm and blues being laid down, and they're changing it and rocking it up. And
I noted that one too. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Pete's guitar work sounds very different at this stage. Granted, he's 19, Ron's 19, Mike Gibbons is 17, so they're still developing quite a bit, but really psychedelic sound to the guitar on Love Hurts, and a lot of his solos, which for mid-66, yes. This is not Summer of Love yet. Some of this psychedelic playing must be very recent that he's developing that. Taxman's not even out yet. That style of doing those quick kind of Indian scales, I don't know where he's already doing that from.
Well, the Byrds had picked it up a little bit, I think, from Ravi Shankar already, or from some source, I think. And I think supposedly the latest word is that's the fellows that transmitted it to George and his love of it in the summer of 66.
But this is the summer of 66.
This is the summer. All right.
So so I'm saying it's really notable. Yeah. But yeah, generally these have more of a groove, I think, than some of the later stuff. So they're kind of, they're like, rocking through it, and they're a little more like Motown-y, but then they have a psychedelic twist in the middle sometimes. I only knew a couple of them. I know Young Blood, obviously I know, and I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself, I know because the White Stripes covered it 40 years later. I thought that was a really nice cover too. And even the ones that I wasn't familiar with, I think sound great. Stupidity, I thought was great, which is one of the only 3 or 4 that Pete sings. Great, and the riff is very like Lady Madonna, I think, his influence. It's Alright was Pete Again, which I thought was a great song, and I looked it up. That was actually the opening number for one of the gigs, so they stuck it in the middle, but it makes sense. I thought you would like the What Kind of Boy, the Holly song they covered.
Yeah.
They did a nice job with that. And Seesaw, disappointing it's not Seesaw Grandpa, but it was good. And Buzz with the Fuzz was a weird one.
That was
weird. Very. I mean, they say this is a jazz number, and it is really offbeat, but pretty gutsy to perform that one.
I would say so. Not really their image.
Not a huge crowd reaction to these. It's kind of silent after each number. Pete usually, sometimes Ron or Di, quietly announce the title of the next song and who it's by, and that's it. There's not a lot of banter or anything. So you really get this. I mean, they are high school kids, basically. It feels like a high school talent show or something. And I mean, their talent is there, but in terms of the rapport with the audience and everything, they're pretty unknown. And so I think
cool. Ron did a little banter or something, but it's
not much between the members either.
No,
it's like the chemistry is developing still. It's really early.
Musically, they're right with each other, but the effect of a band of camaraderie and comfort and confidence, and that hasn't quite made its appearance yet. But musically, it's impressive for 16, 17.
And Dave and Ron are doing most of the vocals, and they do a great job. Again, for 19 years old, they're 19 and 20, I guess. They, these are not easy numbers to sing. There's 6 songs from this set that were recorded but were not on this CD. So one of those since has been put on YouTube, My Girl, hoping maybe the other 5 we get eventually. But it's cool to have, the majority of 2 sets. I don't think we had any idea before this was released in 2017 that there was a full recording from 1966. That's really early. It's great that Bill Collins took the recording process seriously, and great way to kick off this series.
I think many Iveys fans would have it as well, or Badfinger fans that are looking back into the Iveys, that the image you've had of the Iveys, they seem like they're born when Apple discovers them, but they weren't. They paid their dues, and they put in their gigs, and they worked hard, and I just didn't picture them with quite the edge that this live band has. Some of the emphasis on as we said, on the rhythm and the tight rhythm and rock, for a lack of it's just all there, and Ron's bluesy voice and the whole thing. It's a different band a little bit.
What you're talking about, a lot of those themes really start to come through on Iveys Anthology 2, which is a recording, again, another live show from September 6, 1968. So a little over 2 years later, and this was released on 2019. So they were signed to Apple on July 23rd. So this is about a month and a little bit after they're signed to Apple. The Beatles are wrapping up the White Album. Probably already played Hey Jude and that whole story. Music has changed significantly. The band lineup has changed. Di is out, and Tom Evans has been in the band for actually over a year at this point. He came in August 67. And that has really changed just the whole sound of it. And right away, the first couple songs you hear are all Tom Evans vocals. He's singing so many of these songs. He kicks it off with So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star, River Deep Mountain High, Long Tall Sally, Respect. That one is like superhuman, the way he sings Respect and stuff. And his banter is also driving a lot of the way that they're interacting with the audience. And now there is an audience reaction 2 years later. It seems like they have a little bit of a reputation, which is cool. And a lot of these covers I am more familiar with. So it also shows you how I think maybe the staying power of a lot of these songs has changed over time. The Summertime Blues, that one really rocks. They do the Eddie Cochran one, but they rock it up even more. They do a couple Hendrix songs, Purple Haze and Stone Free, back to back on here. Pete Ham's learning the bits exactly. He's doing the whammy guitar stuff, and he's recreating them very closely. And his guitar playing has come a long way in these 2 years. He is now playing, I'd say, at the same level as a lot of Badfinger stuff. Like, he's really developing those triplets we always talk about, and some of the effects and the vibrato he's putting on the notes and everything. It almost sounds like a completely different guitarist from 2 years before that. Hideaway is one of the best examples of his lead playing at this time in his whole career. They do Lady Madonna. I was talking about on Iveys Anthology 1, Stupidity kind of sounded like they were using the riff. They must have loved that riff, because now the song comes out and they're covering that. Crawling Up a Hill. Ron's voice is super developed as well. He's that bluesy thing. He has more control over it and range, and more Ivy singing. I'd say there's a little more of the kind of soft harmonies and stuff that I think Tom probably brought into it, but some really fast beats. And I think this is part of the point you're making, is that we always say Maybe Tomorrow didn't really capture the feeling of who the Iveys were. And we don't just say that, the band members say that. That's why you need to hear Iveys Anthology 2. It shows you the power of their live performances and in a pretty high audio fidelity as well. Notably, again, 66, they didn't play a single song they wrote. 68, they're still not playing that many. I mean, you got to remember, they started recording Maybe Tomorrow. The single's coming out in 2 months. And they play 3 songs they've written: Storm in a Teacup, No Escaping Your Love, and Her Daddy is a Millionaire. Not the 3 that I'd be promoting probably from that album. None of them are even on the album, or will be on the album when it's released. They're all kind of weird odds and ends and B-sides and stuff. So really notable for a band that's going to be popularized for its songwriting, that the songwriting's still largely absent from the live set.
I would only echo what you said. I have to. I mean, the playing of Pete Ham has matured remarkably in a couple years, and it's a very impressive thing that comes through, almost breaking through the Iveys Badfinger traditional no dice starting point to make you think that, well, this was cooking already. He was really playing. And Tom's entry has a huge impact on the band, obviously. I just love to hear his vocals, whatever they are, and he adds all of them to it. And I think at this point they're still expanding as a band. Whatever future clash between Tommy and Ron wasn't, just band is just all points on, and you could see why it might have caught somebody's interest at Apple as we approached closer to that point in time.
These are heavy songs, and they perform them in a way that's really heavy. But what stands out is their written songs, like No Escaping Your Love. I love it. It really does not seem like it belongs in the set list. Storm in a Teacup after Purple Haze and Stone Free. It's a very different feel. They're not covering songs that are in that style. It's like they write songs that are this cute cartoon kind of tongue-in-cheek thing, and then they're covering these heavy blues songs and rock and roll songs.
But what a phrase, Storm in a Teacup.
Yeah.
It's great.
All right, so then we'll cover the third and final edition for this video, which is Iveys Anthology 3, the Golden Delicious Demos. This was released in 2022, and this is a collection of demos from 1966 to 69. Moving from the live recordings into getting some of the early studio and home demo stuff. A lot of these are remastered versions of songs that were only available on these Apple compilation discs that were buy each one for like imported for $20, $30, and it would have like 3 or 5 Ivy songs on it. So it's a lot of remasters of those songs. There's 6, I believe, that were not ever available anywhere else. Standouts for this edition, there are 2 co-written Ham Evans songs from kind of that Iveys 67, 68 era and 2 from the 69 era. And I think those are both the strongest ones. So the Iveys era ones are I'm Too Shy and She Came Out of the Cold, a different version than was already available. Those are just unbelievable harmonies, and you can see the power of Pete and Tom working together and showcasing, I think, both of their skill sets on those songs. In 1969, the 2 co-written songs are John Forgot to Sing and Carry On Till Tomorrow, which they have a very extended version of that, kind of an acoustic jam at the end. I think that is laying the foundation for Badfinger's potential and everything that's going to come. I'm Too Shy was always, I think, my favorite Iveys demo when I was a kid and stuff. I just think it has so much power. I love the bass, just how loud that bass comes in, and then hearing Pete really kind of scream with Evans on top of him really high.
Yeah.
That song's got a lot. I mean, people say, like, why wasn't that seriously recorded in a studio way for a single? I think that had a lot of potential. We got Man Without a Heart, which is a great Pete Ham song. The Pete Ham home demo is very emotional. This version's a little more insipid, they're trying to almost hide some of the emotion of the song, I think, and maybe it makes it more palatable, but when you know the version that Pete recorded, it's hard to listen to. So we got songs from every member on here, which is unique. It really represents every member of the band. Ron sings Taxi, which Pete Ham wrote. He sings the I Believe in You Girl, which they did a lot of different versions of and was seriously considered as a single. Words With You, Tube Train, which allegedly the Beatles even liked a lot of the sound effects and stuff that were in that. And then another standout from this edition is his version of Midnight Sun. For the final recording, he had, he was sick, but here he is doing a take at actually singing the lead vocals on the song. Tom has a couple tracks. He does I Should Have Loved You, Apron Strings, Sad Tomorrow, and Maybe Tomorrow, obviously. And so we have different versions of all those. Pete has a very weird collection of Pete songs on here. Another Day, which is almost like an Arabic-style riff or something.
Yeah, that's weird.
I've Been There Once Before, which is very psychedelic. And then Clown of the Party. Very weird selection of Pete Ham songs. And then we got 2 Mike songs, Change Your Mind and She Mystifies Me. She Mystifies Me is a rocker, too, so it's kind of cool to see them all, go behind that. And then finally, not a huge fan of it, but it was an interesting experiment to end it with an Evolution mix of Without You. Just something that, a lot of the John Lennon camp does now on a lot of their archive releases, where they kind of show you this song evolving over time through different snippets of demos. And, it's interesting. I guess, I don't know why just for that specific song. I'd maybe like to see that for all the songs they were working on at this time, but that's an interesting kind of final note.
What you were saying about Pete struck me in one place. It's a strange period in a way. I've Been There Once Before is actually eerie. It's a real paranormal Pete song or something. Otherwise, they were developing all the time, and were much tighter little club band than anything you'd understand by reading about, because that's just the background of the whole story. They come to Apple, their story starts. But it didn't start then. And when you become aware of the dues they paid just to get to that point and everything, you realize what a long road they were on. It's pretty poignant, and there's a great music along the way.
It didn't start in 1970, but this group of recordings is definitely late 60s. You can hear the psychedelic influence. Like I've been there once before. I've been waiting. They're very influenced by like mid 67, 68 jam kind of psychedelic stuff is sounding like, creating this atmosphere that is very 60s. So it's interesting to hear, and I love that they caveat these editions. They're always anthology. I think these first two or three, they all say kind of origins, and that is the right way to think about it. This is the origin. A lot of this doesn't translate one-to-one with what's coming, but there's something underneath that is still inspiring the trajectory that they're going to take. There's notes that you hear here that remind you of things that are coming later. So Pete wrote hundreds of songs at this time. We have Keyhole Street, which is even 66, 67, and we know that how many songs are there. But it's interesting that the ones he's bringing to the studio and that they're professionally recording, they are of a specific type at this time. So, and you really realize what a foot, taking Pete, for instance, what a foot he had in each musical world. And I think you raise a great point. In 1970, the proof is in the pudding. They changed everything. They brought in Joey. They changed the name. They wrote different, and that was it. That was a real reset. But now you understand that they had the talent and then brought in tremendous talent. So these are available on CD still, and they are very nice CD insert packages. But they're also now all available on streaming. So we'll put the links in the description. And, if you're interested in editions, Iveys Anthology 1, 2, or 3, feel free to check them out. A nice context if you want to go on that musical odyssey with us and listen to the roots of the band. So thanks for watching, and let us know what you think.